Welcome back to Friday Night Live on this February 11, 2011. Mike Rickett, Tony Insetti, Ben Carroll on the big board, brought to you by Hy-Vee and our great Hy-Vee partners like Gillette, the best a man can get. Land O'Lakes, trust the name where simple goodness begins. And now available at your Des Moines area Hy-Vees. Wheaties, the breakfast of champions. Nestle's candy with Butterfinger. Nestle's Crunch, Kit Kat bars, all available at all Iowa Hy-Vees. Now let's continue our conversation with Bud Legg, Information Director at the Iowa High School Athletic Association. I have to say that was a great comeback, Bud, on behalf of me and my Chamber of Commerce Bishop Heelan conversations. That's the first time I've heard that.
Well, I'm sure it wasn't a loss for words.
Hey, but tomorrow afternoon here in Des Moines, we'll get a chance to not just see some Central Iowa teams, but teams from each side of the state. Cedar Rapids, Washington will visit and take on a Sioux City East Black Raiders team on the boys' side. Two teams that have hopes of making the Wells Fargo Arena and winning a state title before the Iowa Energy game. That should be some fun to watch tomorrow.
Well, I think it will, and of course I'm going to be at the state swim meet, but I would encourage any of the basketball fans who want to see kind of a little bit of a preview of what type of talent awaits the fans for the state 4A to take that in, because those two are emblematic of the other six that will probably join them down there.
Hey, Bud, when we opened the show, I mentioned that I had lunch yesterday with Chad Ellsbury and was talking about getting a couple tickets from my daughter for the swim meet over in Marshalltown. I figured, he detailed for me the line and how early people get in line to get in at Marshalltown. It must just be chaos over there.
Well, 2 years ago when the weather was not very good, they were waiting at 4 a.m. in the morning for a meet that starts at 12:30. Finally, the people that opened the Y got there at 6 and let them into the gymnasium area there so they could stay warm and wouldn't have to stand outside. But swimming fans in Iowa are just rabid about their sport, and there's some awfully good swim teams in Iowa this year.
It's going to be outstanding with Austin Abbas, and I mean, he's got an All-American time, Bud. That says an awful lot about that man.
Oh yeah, he's a dandy.
Well, let's take a look. We left off with 3A. We're going to finish up tonight with the 4A Substate preview on boys basketball, and we'll start in Substate number 1. Well, one of the teams expected to be there throughout the season. They've been right there in the top 5, if not the top 2 all year. Sioux City East, the Black Raiders. But, Lewis Central of Council Bluffs, they play in that 3A conference. They play some good competition, the Harlans and the Carrolls and the Kemper Catholics of the world. So they face some pretty good competition night in and night out, but just kind of under the radar because they play a lot of 3A teams.
Well, if you take a look at 4A basketball this year in Iowa, you better bring your A game every night because some of the teams that may not have great records are fully capable of knocking somebody off, and that's going to be true of every one of those 8 sub-states. So I think you're right. Lewis Central could figure into that picture a little bit, as could a Council Bluffs Abraham Lincoln.
Well, in Sub-State 2, the defending state champs are there, but probably not going to make much noise with the likes of West Des Moines Valley and Waukee. Mason City showed they're capable. They knocked off a Cedar Falls team that everybody was looking at. Marshalltown can get up and down the court. It's going to be an interesting Sub-State, Bud.
That is not a Sub-State that anybody wants to take lightly, and I would probably tell somebody that might want to badmouth it to say, okay, you go play them. Because there's some awfully good teams there, maybe some with not such great records. But, if you take a look at the most prominent rating system or power ratings in Iowa, it'll tell you that 8 of the top 10 teams in 4A are from the Central Iowa Metropolitan League, and I don't think anybody would have thought that at the start of the year.
And no, I didn't think so either. In Sub-State number 3, an interesting one with Cedar Falls and Cedar Rapids Jefferson. Looking like possibly they would be on a head-on collision. Both of them get first-round byes.
That's true, and there's a dark horse in this picture that was in the 3A tournament last year. It came down to 4A this year on a alphabetical flip. It was either going to be Epworth, Western, Dubuque, or Norwalk that would go to 4A to round out the top 48. Epworth, Western, Dubuque got the nod, so to speak, and they played the first half of the season without their leading scorer. He's back now, so I would not count the Bobcats out of this title picture at all. They could run right into Cedar Rapids Jefferson in the semis. That could be a great game, and of course, the Tigers from Cedar Falls, as you mentioned, with a great young, clean team.
Well, in Sub-State number 4, Cedar Rapids Kennedy has been the steady Eddie there, but they're not blowing people out. And then one of the rivals, Cedar Rapids Washington, will have to come out of the quarterfinal round game. And Dubuque Senior, under the radar this year, playing better basketball down the stretch.
You just mentioned 3 very well-coached teams, and coaches will have them ready to go when they throw it up for the Sub-State. So I think that one is pick one and see what happens.
Well, before the season, I would wonder about this, but as the season's developed, this is going to, and you brought it up too, but I got to give you some credit. You said, watch out for Davenport West. Bingo. B-I-N-G-O on that one. Davenport Central's been pretty solid all year, but Davenport West seems to have their number. And Iowa City West is just continuing to get better and better. This should be a very good Sub-State, number 5.
I think it will. Davenport West, as you mentioned, is playing well. And Iowa City West went through that spell where they dropped, I think, 3 of 4 games by overtime and on last-second three-pointers to lose. So the Trojans of Coach Bergman may be the team that comes out of that, but Davenport West, it's been a while since the Falcons have been back, and they would like nothing more than to get to the well.
In Sub-State 6, they deserve this seed, and probably somebody's going to really have to step up the way they've been playing ball. Linn-Mar of Marion, the team to beat there.
Linn-Mar has got the Ames moniker from last year.
Yeah.
Everybody's going to expect them to win, and everybody's going to not just win, probably expect them to win by double digits. That may not happen, but this is a mighty fine Lion ball club, and it's going to take a great team to knock them out. And on the bottom side of that bracket, North Scots and their fine three-point shooters are hoping they are that team.
You know, the 2 teams in Sub-State 7 that'll catch your eye, Ankeny and Johnson, both shoot well, but they can also shoot themselves out of basketball games if they're not hitting that outside shot, and a team that could sneak in there possibly with a lot of tradition in Southeast Polk. But Ankeny and Johnson, the 2 teams that get the bye, probably the teams to beat there.
They probably are, but, you know, if tradition counts for anything, take a look at what Southeast Polk was able to do once they made the tournament last year. I think they gave Ames everything that they wanted in that championship game, but this should come down to Ankeny and Johnston, but who knows?
Well, Sub-State 8, the final one, all the CIML teams, Des Moines Hoover, Dowling Catholic, Urbandale, Des Moines Roosevelt, every one of them capable on any given night to win. Des Moines Hoover probably the team, both on the offensive, especially the defensive side, where they really get after you, the team to beat there, but this could be another very tough Sub-State.
Might boil down to the Battle of Aurora Avenue with the Huskies and the Jayhawks from Urbandale.
Well, Bud, we certainly appreciate you taking time. We know you're going to be very busy tomorrow over in Marshalltown, and
I'm just hoping to stay dry.
yeah, just don't get too close to the pool.
You mean nobody will toss you in the pool tomorrow?
I hope not.
Okay.
Thank you very much, Bud, and we'll talk to you soon. We'll see you down at Wells Fargo Arena next week.
Always my pleasure, guys.
Thank you, Bud.
Bud Legg, always gracious enough to assist us on all of our programs, information director and former coach and athletic director, and just a real staple in the Iowa high school athletic environment, and everybody in the state knows Bud.
I wonder if Epworth Western Dubuque wants to change their name to Western Dubuque of Epworth, because now if that would have been the case, it would have been Norwalk playing in 4A this year.
And you know what? That's your responsibility to follow that closely. I wasn't aware of that. I do remember Bishop.
I didn't know it was an alphabetical thing. I knew that they were in 4A, but I didn't realize that the alphabet was the reason.
Well, I remember when they won the state championship when Nate Funk was a junior at Bishop Heelan. You remember that?
Yeah.
And they've always had solid basketball tradition. And there's many times when we've taken a look at 3A teams that we feel could be playing in the 4A state championship. So it'll be interesting to see how that comes out over that sub-state.
It's going to be fun. I mean, there's always an upset here and there, but for the most part, I think the way the games have played out this season, there have been some close ones, especially in that eastern half of the state. You know, Bud talked about Iowa City West losing a couple of overtime games, a 1-point game here and there. Those can be turned around very easily, but for the most part, I think the teams have pretty much been consistent with who they've beaten and how they've played this year. And I think 4A is going to kind of unfold the way we've seen it all year.
Well, I love this time of year, Tone. You do a superb job in having the analysis from Bud. You know, they set up these tournament brackets, and to get his analysis and probably on how they look at setting it up. But it gives you that March Madness, that feeling of basketball in the high school and collegiate environments, the postseason, and it's my favorite time of year when it comes to winter sports.
And again, some teams' records before the season, you look at records, you got to remember that some of these teams had players that came on halfway through the season because they were ineligible for the first half of the season because of the transfer rules or whatever, or there were injury problems and now they're healthy. Bud alluded to a few of those teams that have those situations going on. And you just don't know what's going to happen once you get the ball gets bounced out. And we all know the coaches coach a little bit different. The shoestrings get tightened up a little bit tighter.
The nerves are a little tighter.
You know, yeah,
a lot
it's
tighter.
Interesting, especially the early part of the game. You can win or lose a basketball game in the first 5 minutes because of how you come out of the blocks and pretty much, just end a team's hopes with the start of a basketball game, especially at the high school level.
Well, and a lot of it has to do with the tradition of the programs and the coaches that are accustomed to getting to the postseason. There's a lot of that as well. When we come back in the 8 o'clock hour, we're going to continue our conversations, and we're going to flip the switch and talk wrestling as we do each and every Friday night here on the Iowa Sports Connection Radio and Television Network.